Hello everybody, Z1009 here and welcome to NRL Tips and Predictions Round 6. We're doing it properly. Obviously last week I did the speed run. That's still going to be a thing. Trying to see if we can break the record set last week. But anyways, let's go straight into the games for Round 6. Bit of a festive, bit of Easter action, if you will. Going into the first match of the round, it is the Melbourne Storm hosting the Sydney Roosters in what is fairly going to be a very interesting clash. Obviously, both teams are coming off wins last week. The Storm ended up beating the South Sydney Rabbitohs in a very tight and close game, which I think was a very decent win for them. Kind of seeing the tone that, yep, they are still going to be contenders this year. And the Sydney Roosters with a win against the Parramatta Eels. Parramatta did look all right for a bit, but the Roosters showing their strength in that match. So going into this game, obviously being held in Melbourne, it is going to be very close. But I feel like this is the first true test for the Roosters, because obviously a lot of people have said that they're going to go on and win the premiership or come first, whatever. This is a game where they need to do it. Against the Storm in Melbourne, this is a match that they need to do it in to show, yep, that they are being serious about being contenders this year. And for that, I'm actually going to say that, yes, I do believe the Sydney Roosters will take the first game of the round and they will continue on their somewhat alright winning streak. I think they haven't lost since round 1. So, yeah, keep it going with their good performances. Now we move on to Good Friday, and oh boy, is it a Good Friday, because you've got the Canterbury Bulldogs up against the South Sydney Rabbitohs. The traditional Good Friday matchup. A lot of history, a lot of bad blood that has been spilled. I remember the one year where, well, the Bulldogs got royally screwed over in their game. I believe it was 2015, which caused the referees to be pelted by bottles. I think it was it Cummings that was the one that slipped over, something like that. Trying to remember exactly what happened, but obviously the Dogs came in clutch in a very big way, getting a golden point victory over the North Queensland Cowboys on Sunday. Not many Monday games anymore. When the native team comes in, they'll be back. And obviously the South Sydney Rabbitohs are also coming off a loss to the Melbourne Storm at home. This is, again, very similar to last week. Not last week, but the game on Thursday, whether this is a true test to see if a team will be challenging for something. Obviously, you've got the Bulldogs very much wanting to make a charge for the finals this year. This is a big test for them. Also a big test for South, because South are currently kind of out of their depth at the moment. They're currently 13th. They need a win desperately. And a game against the Bulldogs is one of them. But for me in this match, I have to go with the Bulldogs to win this game. I just have to. I think the Bulldogs have got all the momentum in the world at the moment coming off this win. And I think it's going to be a very close game, mind you. But I do think the Bulldogs will beat South Sydney. Potentially, maybe, might go to golden point as well. Now we go into the final game on the Friday at 8 p.m. It is the North Queensland Cowboys up against the Dolphins. Didn't say redacted this time. So obviously the Cowboys did suffer the golden point loss on Sunday to the Bulldogs. And the Dolphins actually coming off a fairly sizable defeat to the Dragons. For this game as well, this is where you actually got to start questioning the Dolphins at the moment, because it did suffer a butt ton of injuries in the lead up and the aftermath of the Brisbane match 2 weeks ago. And this is where you're probably going to start to see the team start to unfold and go down the ladder a little bit, with a fair amount of their star players being out. So, though the Cowboys have looked rather weird so far for the last couple of games, I mean, so far this season, I think they've been relatively soft. I wouldn't say soft, but they've had sort of a soft start to the season, but they haven't really capitalised on it. But I do feel, though, here, the North Queensland Cowboys should get the win over the Dolphins and try to, restart their season, if you will, and just go in for it with a win. Now we go to the two games on Easter Saturday, and first up, it is the Penrith Panthers up against the Manly Seagulls in what is actually going to be a very tasty matchup. Obviously, the Penrith Panthers last week gave an absolute bollocking to the Canberra Raiders. Kind of the first real game where there's been an absolute complete blowout. which in fairness wasn't really that much showing in the first half, but the second half they came out, Jamin Salmon putting the icing of the cake, putting the score over 50 points, because we all know no team has conceded 50 points in a regular season game and got on to win the grand final. The Newcastle Knights for having this rule being a thing. It's just ridiculous. I hate it's just put that shit in my veins. Obviously, the Manly Seagulls are coming off a 90-minute draw with the Newcastle Knights. And me as a Knights fan, I will say, should have been a loss. But in all terms, this is going to be a very excellent game, to say the least. The issue I have with Manly trying to get this win is that, obviously, they just played 90 minutes. But potential possibility of a player being out, I don't know. I think Illawarra should be all right, though. But I just feel like Penrith, they're just coming off. They just had a big shellacking of the Canberra Raiders. And I feel like they'll come into this and take the win, unfortunately, for Manly fans. I do think Penrith will go on and win this match. And now we go on to the final game on Saturday, and it is the Brisbane Broncos taking on the Canberra Raiders. Kind of interesting how it's said about of the Parramatta Eels having Thursday night matches, but now we've got the Brisbane Broncos, who for some reason are the only team that ever plays on the prime time Saturday night game. It's like, once again, they're signed to like a exclusivity deal with Channel 9. Obviously, they're taking on Canberra. Canberra got bollocked against Penrith, and Brisbane were giving a bollocking to the West Tigers last week. It was first versus 17th last week. It's now first versus 16th. The Broncos are just going to continue their winning streak. I honestly could potentially see them going like 8 or 9 in a row until they actually suffer their first loss. That's just the way I think Brisbane are currently at the moment. I think they're just going to run roughshod, and I think they're going to take this win easily. Could it be 50 points again? Actually, yes. I think Brisbane will put 50 on the Canberra Raiders. Now we go on to Easter Sunday. Chockies for all. Get that NRL egg in with the ladder on the back. You know, just one of those things. Obviously, and it's also two games which have already, the two teams have already played each other and are playing each other again. So first up, at 4:05 p.m, it is the Gold Coast Titans up against the St. George Illawarra Dragons. They did play, I think it was around round 2, a couple of rounds ago, with the Dragons taking the win. Obviously, the Dragons are coming off that win as well over the Redcliffe Dolphins, whilst the Gold Coast Titans are coming off a bye. So, going to be very interesting to see how this one plays out. Obviously, the Dragons got the win down at Cogra. Now it's up at the Gold Coast. I do think the Titans actually did play all right. Obviously, I think injuries is going to be a big problem for them going on with the rest of the season, or roughly until like the middle half of the season. So, and with the Dragons having the more focused team, they've gotten the new Manly players that don't want to be there. I feel like the Dragons should take the win here. Like, I know it's a bit weird, but I just feel like it will be a close game. It will be very much like Titans-Cowboys or Cowboys-Titans, whoever was the home team. I don't remember. But it's going to be a relatively close game, similar to round 2, but I do think the Dragons will still take the game there. And now we move on to Sunday, 6:15 p.m. It is the Newcastle Knights up against the New Zealand Warriors. So, the Warriors are apparently very good now. When did this happen? The Warriors now currently second place. They haven't lost since round 2. All been relatively close games. Obviously, in the last couple of weeks with the Bulldogs and the Sharks. Also with controversial calls when I was saying anything. And obviously the Newcastle Knights are coming off a 32-all draw against Manly, which we should have won because the Bunker are a bunch of fucking idiots. Breaking news, this is a knock-on. Just off. So obviously, yes, in terms of position differences, the Knights are 11th, but the Warriors are 2nd. But both teams have been playing very well. Obviously not to the same extent because, you know, the Warriors are winning. But still, the Knights have been showing, especially after 2 weeks ago with the game against Canberra, they came out of the woodwork in the second half and just put the sword to them within the first 10 minutes of that second half, which I have not seen us do. And you're starting to see players starting to get back. Dominic Young coming back, scoring 4 tries. Marju's doing well. It's going to be, I honestly think this could be the game which is going to be the game of the round. I think the Knights versus the Warriors. Who do I think is actually going to win, though? I'm going to introduce the shoo-in of the week. The Newcastle Knights will beat the New Zealand Warriors. Calling it now. Put the house on it. You'll have probably about 3 houses. Just gamble. Don't actually, but you know, I think the Knights will take the win here, and I think it will happen. Also, another shoe-in for the week for something to happen. Mitch Barnett will get put in the sin bin. I'm just straight up calling that because I know it's going to happen. He's going to go in, obviously, it's his first time back in Newcastle since he left. He will get sin binned. I am calling for it, and it's going to happen. But yeah, I think the Knights can win. Now we go on to Easter Monday, and oh boy, Easter rising, hopefully. Easter, get it? It's the Irish War of Independence. You need to have a bit of a basic understanding of that to understand NRL, but it's, of course, it is an early contender for the Spoon Bowl, ladies and gentlemen. It is the West Tigers against the Parramatta Eels. Oh boy, this is going to be interesting. Obviously, the West Tigers have not won a game yet. They got bollocked by Brisbane. It's just weird. Like, they signed all these players and they're on the exact same trajectory that they were last year. And then you got the Parramatta Eels that are currently sort of hungover. I mean, they haven't been playing that badly. I don't think that their play style has been warranted of 15th place, but yeah, I wouldn't say this both teams will be contending for the Spoon, or one of them will be, but I don't think Parramatta will be in the Spoon contention. But I do feel with this game, if Parramatta don't win, there is something horribly wrong. But the weird thing is, though, this is the kind of game where the Tigers would get their first win. This is something like that, but I don't think that'll happen. Parramatta should win this game. And that is the end of my tips and predictions for round 6. Who do you guys have? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you all very much for watching, and I will see you all later.